think I was gonna never get in trouble, so I started committing more crimes that was bigger crimes that I never got caught.
Once the ball rolled as far as trouble, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's hard to really, until you decide you want to stop, it's hard to stop it.
So now I'm about 14 years old. I'm on probation for what happened at school for being expelled, for being in a fight. And now I'm in and out of the DH and out of house arrest. About 6 months after I turned 15, I got in an incident while I was with a person who committed a crime. It was an aggravated robbery. The fact that I was there with him during the time made me guilty by association. And being guilty by association is just as bad as committing the crime in itself. So now I'm in ODYS. I got 2 years or to the age of 21. I'm terrified. I'm in DYS. I'm young. I'm a white kid from the suburbs. First, I'm getting picked on. I'm getting bullied. I could not stand it. I kept telling myself, I'm never going back here. Well, I started doing things I thought I should do. So I got a job. I went back to school. I got my license. I got a car. But then I started hanging out with my old friends. Right back to the same things. Started drinking, doing all the things that I was doing prior to. That got me in trouble. I met a drug named ecstasy, which after I met ecstasy, it literally started to deteriorate my quality of life. It just went down a tube. So now I'm selling the drug. I'm gonna move from job to job. I'm living on my own. I have my own job, I have a car. I think I'm unstoppable. I can do whatever I want to do. Again, I was wrong. You know, 1 week, I screwed my whole life up. I ended up robbing 2 individuals. It was an aggravated robbery. 2 individuals, 2 separate nights during the week. That is the reason I'm incarcerated today. I like to blame it on the alcohol, the drugs, and just a distorted mind frame. And I sometimes, still to today, I can't understand how I did not have the leadership skills and the confidence inside myself to just say, no, I don't want to do this. I was so worried about just fitting in to the crowd. If you continue to live a certain way, for some reason, your mind will start thinking that that's okay. You can convince yourself that what you're doing is okay. You hit that moral compass that you're supposed to have inside of you, starts going off direction. All my ambitions, all my goals were towards the wrong thing. It goes back to that moral compass that was off center.
I got my GED and came back home. And as soon as I came back home, I jumped right back into the same exact life that I was in before. But now I was older. Everybody was getting more money than I was, and I had to jump back in and be exactly where they was at. All I had was a GED. I didn't stay and get my trade at that time. I just came home and they gave me some money and I did what I had to do to get where I wanted to get to. Got me a place and I was back in the mix of it. And that's when I first went to jail. First time I went to jail, 18 years old. I'd never been to jail before. That was my first time going to jail. I actually started crying the first time I went in jail, and it was only 16 days. The judge, I looked at the judge and he said 16 days. I'm thinking, man, that's gonna be forever. It was 2 weeks. He said 16 days. I was mad because I already served 1 day in there. He gave me 15 more days for something that happened probably about 18 months before. Well, about 18 months before when I was a juvenile. I'm a grown now. I gotta go do them days. That was the first start of probably maybe over 100 trips before I actually caught any felony cases. That was actually the first time of over 100. I was in and out of the county over 100 times. It'd be trespassing, it'd be medicine, it'd be driving without license. Now I was driving under suspension. Now old fines, and it's DUI, and it's public intoxication, and it's underage consumption. There was so many charges. I just kept doing it, and every time the judge see me, he'd give me more time, but it's never a lie. One time it was 15, next time it's 20, and this time it's 25, The most I ever did in the county at one time was 45 days. And I got over 100 convictions. After you do something so many times, it gets easy. So going into the county got easy. I'll take it as a vacation. Well, I need to go relax. I've been drunk every day for a week. I need to go get my mind right so I can get back on my illegal track of selling drugs again. And then I'll go from there. I'll go in there 10, 15 days, get out. Now I'm refreshed. If you don't do a lot of time, you don't realize the trouble you're in, and until they sentence you to a lot of time, and it ain't no coming home in a month. It ain't no coming home in 2 months. It's 10, 15 years down the line, 5 years down the line, you can come home. That's a long time.
I had a teacher that had me as an aide in his class, and he was an old convict who had straightened up and got clean and actually started working for the state. He said there's 2 ways to take things in this world. There's one with brute force and stupidity, and he said as soon as you leave that scene, they're calling the police as you walk out or run out the door. There's also a way to talk it, be a little sophisticated, be able to use your conversation, and you're tricking them and you're cheating them, but what they're doing is giving you the money, and they're shaking your hand when you walk out the door because they haven't quite realized yet that you just conned them. He said, but you're going to do better if you learn how to do it like this instead of the brute force, the robbery, the taking, the physical. Life is going to go easier on you, he says, because I can see one day you're going to wake up. Now, I didn't believe that. But what I did catch was the negative part of, wow, I got a brain, I can use it to manipulate and con, let me try that. And I became very good. I looked around, my family was disjointed and broken up. There was so much pain and anger still that the only part of a family it was in name only. And I said, I don't want to be here. I got into a huge row with my mother and stepfather, and I left California and went to Austin, Texas. That was the beginning of my crystal methamphetamine addiction, and I started shooting drugs intravenously, and I was lost. What that did for me, the rush, back then there was an ether base to the crystal meth, and it was so pure that it was overpowering. It was also kind of sexual, and it took away all my pain, all my sorrow, all my guilt, all my confusion and fears, and it masked them. And you know, it introduced me to what I call my own personal horrific merry-go-round. I could get on the merry-go-round and it was get money, get dope, get high. Get money, get dope, get high, get money, get dope, get high, until I fell down. And I was that abusive user. I couldn't get high for 2 or 3 days and then lay down and get some sleep and eat. I went till I fell down, and it would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days. And that, in fact, that incident is the type that led me here again this time. I only have I say only, but I got one charge of an aggravated armed robbery. I have 75, 80 convictions in 5 states, 16 alias names that just go on, and I look horrific. And I fit every category and every requirement to be considered a career criminal and have those papers filed on me and never get out of prison.
What led me to illegal activities was the streets, the fast money, the way the streets move, the adrenaline rush. You know, I'm always a person that like to take chances. So I seen every chance. You know, there's a lot of chances out there. Some are good, some are bad. Most of them are bad, but I was just a quick person. You know, I believe I call it, I was trained to go. I raised myself, and I always want to be on the spotlight. I always wanted to be above somebody. I always wanted to give rules out, you know, because I was never taught to listen or ask. So I always wanted to give out the rules, and that came with the streets. So that's what led me out there to sell drugs, steal, lie, cheat, everything that comes with the streets. I wanted to become somebody that was known by the enforcement, known that I was somebody tougher than them. And I wanted to be known as somebody that will get away with negative stuff. I wanted to get away with felonies and stealing. But here I am in the big house, level 3, Trumbull Correctional Institution. You know, it wasn't my dream, but yeah, I believe that everything that I did, this is the only place I could have been dead. I'm incarcerated today because I got an alcohol problem. I'm here today because I drank alcohol and I got into a assault situation with the police, and it was resisting arrest. They called it assault. I got 3 years. But I know that the foundation of that was the alcohol use. I would love, that's my dream. I want to be able to live without the use of any drug. I don't want to depend on a chemical to make me feel better, to hide my feelings, to hide my problems, you know, because there's only a temporary anesthetic when you do drugs, and the body's always gonna ask for more.
My first incarceration was when I first got my GED, and I wanted to go to service. I couldn't go to the service. I was 17. No one would sign me in, so I caught a drug case. I served a little time for that. I came home and to get myself situated because I wanted to start my own business. I got in the streets a little bit, got the money I needed, and got out the way. Well, I was in the drug business, and I got out of the business. My thing was, it was a means to an end. I wanted to have my own business, and I had a towing service. I was involved with a towing service. I did the emergency roadside assistance, but I had vending machines posted in different places, beauty shops, post office, things like that, and I also sold clothes. And I was content with that. I had vehicles, I had a nice home, I was content with that. But during that, I met a few people that we did business in the streets before, and then we did legal businesses. I bought houses from people, quick deeds, stuff like that. And one gentleman who I considered a friend, he had purchased a house from me. We never had bad business when we dealt business in the streets before. And he came and told me he had just got robbed and he had lost a lot of money. It was Christmas time. He was trying to get some money together for his kids for Christmas. And he asked me if I had anything. I told him no. But he said, I know you know some people, which of course I knew some people still were doing their thing. Just because I wasn't, because I sold a lot of clothing and stuff to the people that I was dealing with in the streets. And so I checked around for him. I got, well, he asked for something different, but I still brought him some drugs. And he was wearing a wire on me. And when the police came, that's all she wrote. He was a registered confidential informant. They decided to keep it a state case instead of a federal case. I bond out, and I was looking at 12 to 20 years for this, and I felt like that was unfair, so I went on the run. I collected a little money that I could from a few people that owed me money, and I sold my jewelry that I had accumulated over the years. I pawned it to get the money, and I had one of my relatives drive me to a different city, to the Greyhound. I went all the way to the West Coast. So I stayed on the run a total of 6 years. I was caught in Memphis, Tennessee. I was sneaking in after 5 years. I started sneaking in a little to see my parents, because my grandparents were very sick, and we were very, very close. And I didn't have an ID on me. I had a bunch of money on me, and it was over with after 6 years. And here I am. It was a little mistake that cost me everything. I lost all my properties, divorced from my wife. I lost my vehicles. I lost my businesses. I couldn't pay the property taxes on my property because I'm locked up. I mean, I just lost money repeatedly, losing money. Then they take money that you have on you, that's confiscated. Any money you had anywhere else, so-called friends that owed you money, you don't see that. So you just lose all the way around. And I'm really upset about the time I lost away from my kids because I wanted something better for them. I didn't want them to fall into the situation I was in. So I never had anything around my kids at all. I didn't even have it in the house where it was available to them to get to like I had it available to me. I didn't want that. And doing all that, I'm still here.
Well, the reason why I'm in prison for aggravated robbery. I was involved in a robbery at several different places. Although I wasn't directly involved, the thing that, it's not like I went in and I put a gun on somebody or something like that. But for me, it was, going with that person. And I felt like I owed him that much to be there for him. I felt like even though I didn't need to do it, I didn't even have to do it. I didn't have to do what I was doing. I just did that because I felt like I owed it to him to be loyal, because he was at the worst point of his life. And I knew what it felt like to be at the worst point of your life. And I knew what it meant to have somebody who was willing to say, okay, whatever it is, whether you're right or wrong, I'm gonna be there for you. I gave up my position of leadership. And I gave it up to the moment. I gave it up to emotion for something that wasn't even worth it. And I think that that's the thing. A lot of people who come to prison for committing crimes that after it's done, you realize like there wasn't even any value in what I did. There wasn't any satisfaction in what I did. There wasn't even, and if it was so temporary that you can't even live off of it. You can't live off of it. You can't live off of that emotion. You can't even remember it most times. That money, even if we would have got that money that night, even if we would have got away scot-free with that money, what could you really buy? What could I really have bought with that? There's nothing that is worth this at all. And there's nothing worse than if people tell you you're nothing, if people tell you you're bad, and then you prove it, you prove that you are. There's an old saying that, I thought you were a fool until you opened your mouth and removed all doubt. And I think that when people call you or have negative thoughts about you, they hurt. But by doing the wrong thing, you make it what they say true. And you realize that afterwards. And I guarantee you that there's no amount of money that could make that okay.
It probably started, I was maybe 11 years old. By me being able to go outside, I would spend the whole summers with my grandparents. Not to say that they didn't pay attention to me, but I was allowed the freedom to do what I wanted to do. So on the weekends or during the whole summer, I would leave out 8 in the morning, ride my bike, just ride around the neighborhood. And at that time, it's maybe 1992, so the crack epidemic is really picking up. So now the older guys that watched me grow up, they would give me a bag and tell me take it around the corner. It's a paper bag. I'm not paying attention to what's in it. All I know is when I take the bag around the corner, I get $20. You give an 11-year-old $20, I can go to McDonald's, I can go to the store, I can eat pizza, I can do whatever I want. So it's just, okay, all I have to do is take this bag once a day around there, maybe twice, and I was happy. And by being around that atmosphere, it was like a big brother or a big cousin, or the neighborhood embraced you. It's easy for people to get caught up. It was easy for me to get caught up being embraced by people that were closer to my age than my grandparents or my mother, who was looking at me as just staying in the house. So they embraced me and treated me like a little brother. So I enjoyed that. And when I turned 12, that was the first time I smoked marijuana. I indulged in marijuana, and that just led to deeper and deeper things. Because once I did that, it was, now you have to pay for the marijuana. And nobody wanted to just give me a bag to take around the corner anymore. It was, well, you can do this on your own. So then people started introducing me to selling crack. So by the time I'm 13, I'm already going through the transition of staying with my mom, coming home on the weekends with my grandparents. I'm smoking marijuana already, sneaking, cigarettes. We drinking a little beer that somebody's parents might have in the basement or anything like that in their refrigerator. We sneaking, doing the things that was normal in our neighborhood was a vice. The vices started early, so a 13-year-old kid that's already loving to smoke marijuana is pretty hard. But I'm staying good in school, I'm doing things, but now when I go to school, like junior high, if someone say, let's cut class and go smoke a joint, I'm ready to leave. I don't want to be in class anymore. Even though I know I'm gonna get in trouble, I figure, well, if I can make up the grade, who will know? So it started early, and by the time I was 15, I had got in trouble, and it was a situation to where I could have really been hurt majorly, and my mother ended up taking me out of school and moving me with my aunt. So once again, I get bounced around, and it was just hard. It was just hard. Once the ball rolled, as far as trouble, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's hard to really, until you decide you want to stop, it's hard to stop it. It's hard to stop it. First person that gave me marijuana was my cousin. I was sitting there, we smoking Black and Milds, little cigars, and he asked me had I smoked marijuana, and me not wanting to look like a nerd, I told him a lie. I said yes. Little did I know, later that night, that someone would knock on the door and ask, did we want to smoke marijuana? So he looks at me and I say, yeah, because I don't want to look like a nerd. And these are grown people who we end up going next door with. I was 12, and my cousin might have been 14, 15, but the people next door were grown. We talking about 20-year-old people, 21, 22, living in their own house, paying their own bills, but they looking at us as, even though we children, that they embracing us and accepting us into that. So my first time smoking marijuana was a experience that kind of changed me, because cold water tasted hot. I didn't know what was going on, and at first I just kept smoking and smoking because I say, oh, I'm not high. And by the time I got high, it was too late. I was too high. And after that, I just began chasing it and chasing that same feeling. It was just a snowball effect. It was like an avalanche on my life.
I was never one to be influenced. I just wanted to experience things. I was the type of person who just wanted to experience things on my own. Choices I made on my own. I had good teaching from my parents. So I knew the difference between right and wrong. I always worked, so I had that sense of maturity about myself. And on the negative side was when I went out and experienced the drugs and alcohol and the partying, I liked that too. So, and then, some of the drug dealers I was around, so I worked in the daytime and around business people and did the right thing in the daytime. Then at night, I went to the other side. So, but what led me to come to prison was I shot 3 people. The place it happened was a residential area. Was my co-defendant's niece house at her baby's birthday party. I went and got me some powder cocaine, got some corn liquor, and some weed. So I left my wife and my son at home to go over to their house and barbecue for his son's nephew's birthday, and also to meet another woman there. Some new people moved in from a different neighborhood, and they was, busting bottles in the street. Asked them, could they stop, busting these bottles, because the kids is riding their bikes up and down the street in cars. The auntie of the house called the police, and they got upset and came up in the driveway, and my co-defendant had a rifle, a hunting rifle, on the porch, and I told him to give me the rifle so we can leave. And while we was leaving, the guys rushed us, and I had to shoot him.